Okay. This morning I just want to, revisit some thoughts that we share from time to time concerning the the coming of the Lord Jesus. I know that when it comes to the topic of the coming of Jesus, most people who are from our kind of background are very, very familiar with it. I think probably one of the first magazines I ever started reading was entitled Signs of the Times. Way back when I was a member of the church, Signs of the Times is one of those magazines I used to enjoy. Back in those days, I think it was a better magazine than it is today. But I fed on the signs of the coming of Jesus, and I think most of us will be also in that same place. But last week, was it last week or was it the week before? We looked at the topic of the age of the earth, and as I looked at the chronology of the Bible, which suggests that we are roundabout at the very time when Jesus will come again, it made my mind go back over some of these things that we often talk about, and I just thought I would revisit some of them this morning. And I want to emphasize particularly where Jesus says that his coming will be as a thief in the night. The people who embrace the teaching of the secret rapture, they use this phrase a lot, as a thief in the night. And the way they interpret it is probably what makes it a little bit suspicious, maybe to us and to a lot of people, because how they understand it, they draw an interpretation from the idea of a thief that I don't think is what Jesus intended to make. They say that when a thief comes in the night, you don't know that until he comes. You don't know until he's gone. And I think that's a part of what Jesus is saying. But his message was a little bit more pointed. And I just want to look at some of the verses this morning and see if we can bless ourselves. We can sharpen our faculties by reminding ourselves of some of the things that Jesus said about his coming. So, as we go to the Bible, probably one of the places where Jesus speaks about his coming is the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew chapter 25. And, one of the things that he says over and over is, watch, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. He points to his coming very often, but there are some things in some of these parables that make me believe that the great issue is not so much the coming of Jesus. I know that's a little strange, but hear me out. The great issue, I think, is not so much the coming of Jesus, but it's coming to that crisis just before Jesus comes again. If you look at the parable of the 10 virgins, it says, they went out to buy oil, the foolish virgins, in verse 10, Matthew 25. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. Now, initially, it seems like it is saying that Jesus comes back to earth. But you can see this is not what it means. It says, they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. There is an experience called the marriage. And it seems that this experience takes place even before Jesus comes again. It's some kind of relationship between the people of Christ and Christ. And if you ask me personally, I think it refers to the experience of the Day of Atonement. I think that's what it refers to, but we're not going to go into that today. But they went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. It says, afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, verily I say unto you, I know you not. I know it's a parable. Sometimes you can't take too much out of a parable, but if you look at chapter 22 again, where it talks about the wedding feast, we have a similar idea. It says the king is making a wedding for his son. And it's interesting that again it talks about a wedding. And it says that they went and they gathered people to the wedding, both bad and good. It's very interesting. But when the king comes in to see the wedding guests, he comes and he's looking for the kind of garments that they are wearing. It says he saw a man there which did not have on a wedding garment. And it says when he told him to, he told his servants to bind him hand and foot and to take him away and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So it seems that after the wedding, there is a period of terrible regret. And it is referred to in several of these parables as a time when there is weeping and gnashing of teeth, some kind of outer darkness. So I tend to believe that the time that we need to be preparing for, the time that we need to be ready for, is this time of the wedding, just before Jesus comes again. There's some experience that is to take place. You might call it the sealing, you might call it the Day of Atonement, whatever you want to call it. There's some experience God's people are to go through before Jesus comes again. And that is what will take God's people, or will take the world as a great surprise. That is the thing that he says we need to be watching for. Because when Jesus comes again, I will tell you, I think before Jesus comes again, the conditions on the earth will become so horrific. I hardly think anybody who believes in God is going to be taken by surprise at that time. Those who are lost, even among so-called Christians, will know their condition. And those who are already in a safe place with Christ, they will know. I think they will know, because the conditions are to be such that anybody who has an understanding of Bible prophecy will understand where we are in time. You know, there's going to be the plagues. You're going to see things happening like the sun turning to darkness, the moon to blood. You're going to see the earth breaking up. Nobody at that time will be unaware of where we are in time. So I think the event to be prepared for is the wedding, the sealing. That's what is going to take people by surprise. That's where people can still be relaxed and comfortable and easy and not be aware of what is happening. And that is why we Christians need to have our eyes open. So I'm going to use my PowerPoint here. And I want to answer the question, first of all, why will people be surprised? Because I suppose for us Christians, everything seems so straightforward. It seems like everything is laid out. And we ask, why should anybody be surprised? But Jesus says, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, let me highlight this, thief, because this is something that Jesus is comparing to himself. He's comparing himself to a thief, which is kind of interesting, but I think we understand. He doesn't mean he has the character of a thief, but he means the method of a thief. If he had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, this is the point. Be ye also ready, and here's the point, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. So the whole point of what he's saying here is that whatever is coming upon the world, again, this is why I really don't think that it is referring to the actual coming of Jesus when the clouds open and he comes. You know, if you compare it to the days of Noah, when the rain actually came, the people had 7 days to recognize that something was going on. When it came to 1 week before the flood, everybody was in the same condition. Everybody was comfortable and happy. They were mocking Noah. They were laughing. Everything was okay. And then the door of the ark closed. And in that moment, anybody who had a brain would have recognized that something has happened. Some tremendous event has taken place. And they had 7 days before the flood actually started, before the rain started to fall. So I'm using this to compare to the coming of Jesus. And I think, by the time Jesus comes again, if you think of all the things that it says will happen, Jesus says you shall see the sign of the Son of Man in the heavens. He talks about all the things that will happen. The world is going to be breaking apart, as I said. Everybody will know that something terrific, tremendous, unspeakably, unimaginably great is about to happen. That's not the moment to be prepared for. At that moment, all preparation has already taken place. What we need to be prepared for is the moment of what is called the wedding, the moment of the sealing of God's people, because that is a time when we don't see what is happening. We don't clearly discern the development of things, and yet it is taking place. For the careless, that will be the moment when it is too late. So Jesus gives us counsel, and he says we are to watch, because the whole point of what he's saying is that this moment of decisiveness will come absolutely unexpectedly. Absolutely unexpectedly. And sometimes, I might ask myself, how can that be? Week before last, we did a study on the age of the earth, which shows us that the Bible gives us a rough figure that we are somewhere within the 6,000 year. But I mean, the way human nature is that, Jesus never said, I'm coming in the year 6,000. And there's no precise way of knowing exactly what year we are in. All of us remember this gentleman who said that Jesus would come in 2016. A lot of his followers did like the Adventists did in the great disappointment. They left their business and they made no preparation for the day after. It came and it went. So many people are aware of these kinds of false alarms, and I am aware of it too. And I'm not going to put my neck out on a limb unless the Lord himself tells me that it is so. Even those people who say that Jesus will come in 2031, they do some calculations through Ellen White. There's a brother on Facebook who says he's coming back in 2027 in October. I look at these people with a little touch of amusement, because Jesus never told anybody the day or the hour or the month or even the year when he's coming again. Because his point is to watch and be ready. And human nature is like this. If you know the day when something is happening, as a matter of fact, if you're a Jamaican, you wait until 5 minutes before the time you start getting ready. Okay, maybe 1 minute if you're a Jamaican. But Jesus highlights the point that what is needed is a state of readiness. A state of readiness, not a moment of readiness. And that is one of the reasons, I think we will look at this a little more closely as we continue. That's one of the reasons why he emphasizes that he is to come like a thief in the night, because you don't prepare for the thief. You watch all through the night, and that's the only way you're going to get him, because he's planning to come when you're most likely to be fast asleep. And Jesus says that's what it's going to be. We already looked at this, but as Jesus says that it would be like the days of Noah. And what he highlights here is what I wanted to focus on. It says they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. The first few times I looked at this verse, or I heard somebody mention the verse, the thought that came to my mind was, what is wrong with eating? What is wrong with drinking? What is wrong with marrying? Because these are all things that as human beings we have to do to survive. And yet Jesus seemed to suggest that there's something wrong with what they're doing. He says, in the days that were before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. Maybe that's a part of the problem. Until that very moment. And they knew not. They knew not until the flood came. Maybe that is a problem. And he says, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So he makes a comparison here. And we want to make sure that we get the lesson. So what is the point? I don't think there's anything wrong with eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage. But the point is that people became so absorbed in these things, which are what? They are the common activities of normal life. You have to eat to live. You have to drink to live. You have to marry for the race to continue. People became so absorbed in common things that that was their reason for existence. Notice, I want you to get this point. Nothing is wrong with the things that we're doing. What is wrong is allowing these things to become your world. You know, Jesus made a statement that probably is appropriate here too. Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. Let the dead bury their dead. You know that dead people cannot bury dead people. But what he's saying is that there are certain activities that are secondary and of less importance. And the people who emphasize and focus on the less important things are the people who are spiritually dead. Remember, it's the same Jesus who said, do not take any thought for tomorrow, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? And wherewithal shall we be clothed? Because these are the things the Gentiles seek after. Here you have the difference between the spirit of the Gentiles and the spirit of those who are of Israel. Those who are of Israel, they are concerned about other things. You know, this is one of the tensions I find myself having to balance in my own life, because you know I am involved in ministry, but I also make a living, right? I also have to eat, and I have to drink, and I have to enter into the activities of everyday life. I have to work around the house. I have to work in the yard. I have to do things in town. I have to see to it that my family is taken care of and things function. You know, all the different things that people have to do in life. So I pray to the Lord. I pray to the Lord and I ask Him to help me that I don't become unbalanced. Because like everybody else, if there's something that is not working right, like right now where I live, we have not had any water from any running water from the city for nearly 2 months. Nearly 2 months. So we have had to be. I have some plastic drums at the back, some 600-gallon drums. That's what we have been using, and then they almost ran out. We had to buy some water, and so we have to be kind of rationing our water, and hoping and praying that they will get the system fixed so we'll get water again. But little things like that, So they are the concerns of everyday life. And you can get to the place where you become so absorbed in this kind of life. How do I make some money? How do I make enough money to meet the bills, to pay the rent, whatever it may be? And these things become so much a concern that they become the only thing that you're focused on. That is what Jesus meant. He's not saying it is wrong to eat or drink. He's not saying that it's a problem when you have the school fees to pay. Nothing is wrong with this. He's not saying it's a problem for you to go and get a job. Nothing is wrong with this. What he's talking about is you become so absorbed in secondary things that the things that are really important, you lose sight of it. You don't recognize the signs of the times. You don't see the coming of Jesus as near because your eyes are not upon these things. That is the danger. I mean, some people are able to get away from it all. They are able to find themselves in a place where they can become full-time missionaries. They can become full-time evangelists. That's what God calls some people to. But not everybody is called to that same job. And so the main thing that God wants us to do is to make sure that we don't become absorbed in secondary things. That is the problem. That is what Jesus says will happen to the world. But will Christians be surprised? And of course, you know the answer. Paul says, you are all the children of light. You know, he always makes a comparison between light and darkness. We are the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep. This is a problem. This is interesting because in the parable that Jesus told, Jesus says that while the bridegroom tarried, everybody fell asleep. All right, but I like the mercy of the Lord. Even though He tells us not to sleep, He does not cast away his children if they fall asleep, even though he says don't sleep. But there's a sense in which we sleep unto destruction, and there's a sense in which we sleep, but it's not unto destruction. When we sleep in the sense that we close our eyes to the things that are important, that's a sleep of death. But we can sleep in the sense that we don't have the kind of zeal and the kind of fire that the early church had. But we have not let go of the Lord. We are still hanging on to him, and we are keeping his spirit in our hearts. We are still committed to the ways of the Lord, but maybe not with the fire that would have been ideal. And so there are two different concepts of sleeping. Paul says we should not sleep as do others, and he's talking about the children who are the children of darkness. They don't know what is happening. I'll tell you something. I have some. I think I have some illustrations to illustrate what this means. But give me a second. I have to turn on the fan. There's a problem here in Jamaica. We skipped spring and went straight to summer. One day it was kind of cool, and the next day it has been roasting hot. And since then, I've had to be using my fan. It's warm here. So Paul says we should not sleep as do others. And sleeping, of course, implies being in a state where you when your eyes are closed and when you are sleeping. Sometimes even the house burns down around you and you don't know until you are dead. So sleeping is a in the spiritual sense, sleeping is a bad thing. So let's look at a few more verses that emphasizes this question. Why does Jesus come unexpectedly? I've heard people ask this question. They say it's almost like God is setting up people to fail. He does things that even when Jesus was here and carrying out his ministry, he said things that sometimes were almost intended to chase people away. Like a man comes and says, Master, I will follow you anywhere you go. And Jesus says, the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no way to lay his head. It's like he's saying to the man, don't come behind me, don't follow me, because you are going to come to hardship and difficulty. The man says, I will follow you, but let me first go and bury my father. Jesus says, let the dead bury their dead. And sometimes his words were so cutting and hard, it seems like he was almost making things difficult. And you look at this question of Jesus coming unexpectedly in such an hour as you think not, and you think, why does he do this? Why doesn't he give us a little bit of a warning so we can prepare? Why emphasize unexpected? Even though we know the answer, let's look at it. First verse I want us to look at, first passage, is Matthew 24, verses 48 to 51. It says, but, and if that evil servant, first thing I want to point out is that there's a certain person that Jesus is targeting. The evil servant shall say in his heart, all right, there's no Christian who is going to say, at least I don't think so. I don't think there's any Christian who will say, Jesus is not coming soon. Hardly any. Maybe you'll find one or two, but Jesus says there's a servant who is evil. He's not really a servant of Jesus. But he says in his heart, because he doesn't want to come out clearly and identify himself, but in his heart, he says, my Lord delays his coming. In his mind, Jesus is not coming soon. And why does he think this way? Because he has not been watching the signs of the times. He has not been awake. He has been fast asleep. It says he shall begin to smite his fellow servants. Now, I'm not quite sure exactly what this means. I think it means you're going to treat other Christians badly. And I don't know if this applies especially to the people who are in leadership in the churches, because I find that normally one Christian does not treat another Christian badly, as a general rule. Sometimes it happens, but I find that the people who really set out to smite their fellow servants are the people who are like ministers and leaders in the churches. They are quick to disfellowship people and to condemn people, fellow servants, just because you don't toe the line and walk in the way that they say you should walk. I really am thinking that this has a peculiar application to these ministers. And what do they begin to do? They begin to eat and drink. Okay, that's the same thing like Jesus says. They were eating and drinking. Nothing wrong with that per se, but it says they are drinking, eating and drinking with the drunken. And the drunken are people who are so inebriated, so filled with alcohol that their brains do not work right. And when you, a Christian, begin to eat and drink with the drunken, it means that you begin to associate with and fellowship with and think like and have the same kind of lifestyle like these people. They are drunk because they are not aware of what is really happening. Well, I say it many times, but I have some personal experience of what it means to be drunk. And I understand what Jesus is saying. I wasn't too much of a drunkard in my youth, but I did drink once or twice, and I got drunk on a couple of occasions. And, you know, I know that when you get drunk, the real problem is that the ground appears to be 2 feet closer. All right? Any of you who ever got drunk, you know what I mean. So I used to wonder why you see those drunk men on the road and they are stepping, their knees go up to their waist. They are stepping high. I always used to wonder. Until when I got drunk, I found myself doing it. I lifted my feet because the ground was so close up. I had to lift my feet to put on the ground. And I was surprised when my feet went right through down to 2 feet further down. I lost my judgment. My bearings were gone. I remember when I used to do spearfishing, and I would once or twice, you know, sometimes the guys I go out with, they would smoke a little marijuana. I got into it a couple of times, and I remember anytime I smoked and I went into the water, I would line up the fish. I would have the spear gun directly on the fish. I would shoot and I would miss it by 2 feet. I would miss by 2 feet. And it gave me an idea of what Jesus means when he talks about being drunk, of what the Bible means when it talks about spiritually drunk. It means that you lose balance, you lose an awareness of reality. You don't see things the way they are. And that is what happens when you mingle with the drunken and you eat with the drunken. You associate with people who have a mindset that affects and infects your thinking. So you begin to behave like them and you begin to think like them. When you hear, and maybe I shouldn't even get into this, but when you hear people from say, for example, the Adventist Church, praising the Pope and talking about ecumenism, and associating with them in their schemes and their plans, they think like them because they have been associating, they have been eating and drinking. And so they are thinking like them, and the plans that these people are making for decades in the future, and the creeping mindset that says Jesus is probably nowhere near to coming. Sometimes you don't say it, but because you are beginning to think like this, because you are beginning to operate in the same mode as these people. And so you never are aware of exactly where you are until, as it says, the Lord of that servant will come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, not aware, and shall cut him asunder and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There he says it again. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So what do we get from this? Well, the point I'm making is that you can see from this statement that what Jesus is doing, Jesus is trying to find a way. Jesus is finding a way to separate the genuine Christian from the fake Christian. And I really appreciate that even when you talk, even when you look at the book of Revelation, you can see over and over that this is how God operates. He's constantly finding a way to judge, to analyze, to assess, and to prove what people are made out of. In our atmosphere, in our world, we give them a test paper. That's how you judge people. Or you might let them sit down and you ask them questions. In God's scheme of things, he gives a test that you cannot make a mistake. You cannot fake this exam. You can't fake it. It comes in such a way that what is in you and what you really are is what comes out. And I like the way God does things, because if I'm a fake, I won't be able to get past it. And if my experience is real, I won't be able to fail it. It's wonderful, you know what you are. So for those of us who are the children of the light, the children of Christ, what we can see in this is a warning to avoid eating and drinking with the drunken. There's a warning to avoid thinking like the world and becoming absorbed in the activities of the world and the mindset of the world. You don't want to be caught by surprise, but you can't help it. You can't help it. You don't, the phrase I like, you don't rule your beliefs. Your beliefs will rule you. And that is why it is true that Jesus can judge us according to our works, because our works really demonstrate what is in our hearts. We're saved by faith. We're saved by the state of our hearts. But you can't know the state of a person's heart except by the deeds of the person. And that is why Jesus always makes it come to the place where your deeds are manifested. In the parable of the 10 virgins, well, we looked at this already, but it says the foolish virgins went out to buy oil. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. So the question you will ask is, why didn't they have oil? Why didn't they have oil? I heard somebody say that, you know, they are doubly foolish because oil is not sold at midnight. Nobody sells oil at midnight. So you're stupid to go and look for oil at midnight. Secondly, the oil was free. As it says in Isaiah 55, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Jesus says to the Laodicean church, buy of me. It's basically free, and you don't take advantage of that, and you wait until oil is no longer sold, and then you go out to buy oil. So they are doubly foolish. And so why do they go to buy at this time? Because there is a crisis. Something happens at midnight, there is a cry made, and they go out to buy. They wait until a crisis to prepare. That is their problem. I'm not in the business of trying to scare people. I hate to try to do this. So I'm not trying to scare anybody. But I still think that Jesus, he wasn't trying to scare us. He's trying to tell his children some good principles of life. Some important principles of life. Not to scare us, but to make us understand the way to maintain life. These go to buy oil at midnight. And while they were gone, the bridegroom came. And this means, and whether you like the phrase or not, it means that this is the end of probationary period. It's the end of grace. It's a close of probation, if you wish. The bridegroom comes to the wedding takes place, and they are on the outside. But the point I want to make is that when they come and say, Master, Master, Lord, Lord, open to us, what does Jesus say? He says, I say unto you, I do not know you. I know you not. This is really the bottom line, brothers and sisters. You know, we can look at it as they were not doing the works. They were eating and drinking with the drunken. They did not have any oil in their lamps. We can look at it in different ways. But the bottom line is, it boils down to this. Jesus says, I do not know you. And that's the point. Nobody is going to be saved who does not know the Lord. And nobody is going to be lost who knows the Lord. This is the bottom line. I know you or I don't know you. Those who know the Lord, they will not eat and drink with the drunken. Those who know the Lord, they will have the oil burning in their lamps. Look, you might fall asleep, you might be weak, you might be not the person you want to be, but the oil will be in your lamp if you know the Lord. Even when you fail, you will come to him and you will ask him to keep you close, and you will seek to rise above yourself because you know the Lord. That's the bottom line. we can look at this and we can emphasize different things. Some people will emphasize, that you must keep yourself working for the Lord, or you must keep yourself pure from sins, or you must not mingle with the ecumenical movement, or you must not, think like the world. You can think of it in all these ways, but here is a simple way to take all that and to just put it under one umbrella, and it is to focus on knowing the Lord. That's the bottom line, because that's what he will say to them. He won't say you never had any oil. He won't say you fell asleep. He just says, I don't know you. That's the problem. This is why he says to the church of Laodicea, I counsel you to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that you may be rich, and white raiment, that you may be clothed, and that the shame of your nakedness do not appear. And anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. This is what I really want to focus on. The shame of your nakedness. So are there some people in this room who are without the white garment? I don't know. I hope not. But one thing I will say is that nobody can know. Nobody knows. But there will come a time when everybody will know, and that's the point. That is why Jesus is allowing this crisis, because he says the shame of your nakedness will appear. See what he says in Revelation 16 and verse 15. Behold, I come as a thief. There's that statement, as a thief. Blessed is he that what? That watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. I want to emphasize the word see, because the crisis that is coming, as we have seen, this is not to make you into a condemned person. The person who is revealed in this crisis, the person who walks naked, is already condemned. The only thing that Jesus is allowing to happen, is allowing it to be that it can be seen what you are. What we are looking at is a kind of judgment where Jesus allows a situation to arise to demonstrate what each person is. The point I'm making is that right at this moment, brothers and sisters, every one of us in this room, we are already either wearing the wedding garment or we're naked, one or the other. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. But Jesus says he's coming as a thief. There's that phrase, the experience of the thief. Why? Because your nakedness, if you are naked, it is going to be seen. It's a part of the whole process of the judgment. So all of this I'm going through, I'm really answering the question, why does Jesus come unexpectedly? Why does he deliberately plan to surprise people? Why does he come like a thief in the night? Why does he come like a snare? It's because it's a part of the process of demonstrating, of proving what we really are. It's beautiful, it's wonderful to be a Christian and to know that we are saved by grace through faith. However, it's important that we also understand that our salvation is to be proven, is to be demonstrated by a process that will reveal those who are naked. It will reveal those who are clothed, wearing the garments of righteousness that Christ provides. The prevailing attitude in the world today is one of crass carelessness, and this is why it is so harmful to eat and drink with the drunken, because this is their attitude. In the last days there will come scoffers. A scoffer is who? He's a mocker. All right. Last night in our fellowship meeting, Brother George was talking about, how difficult it is to go to some of these gatherings where you have people who believe all kinds of nonsense. And I could empathize with him. There's a balance, because sometimes you really have to be among people in order to influence them. And you have to accept them sometimes the way they are. But when you go among, when you mingle with people who are continually focused on how to make something of themselves in this world. Okay, let me just tell you something. Let me tell you something. I eventually, I don't even know if I should talk about this, because I'm not really criticizing anybody. I'm just using an example that maybe is meaningful because it applied to me. I don't know. People would say I didn't have ambition. The people in the world. Sometimes I meet upon my friends from back in school days and in college, and I have to get my mind right, that I don't feel a little bit inferior, because most of my friends from college, they went on to highly educate themselves in the way of the world, right? They went on to have their masters, their doctorates. Some of them went on to become school principals of universities, some of my peers from school. And I just never had the ambition. I never had the ambition. The thing is, I was converted when I was 22 years old, and I went to college when I was 26. So you can imagine, when I went to college, the reason I went to college was just because I was teaching at a little training center. I was there for 2 years, and I just didn't know which direction to take in life. I didn't know what to do. And the thought just came to me, why don't you go to college? So I applied and I got through and I went. I didn't have any idea what it was I wanted, but I just went. And it turned out it was good for me spiritually. Maybe it assisted me with help with learning how to teach properly as well. I don't know. But I even look at my children. I kind of broke them into the same mold, because I homeschooled my 3 last children, Daniel and Dave and Annalie. And one day I was riding my bike down the road and I met a teacher. She was vice principal of a school where I used to teach. And she said, Mr. Clayton, I hear that you haven't sent your children to school. You know, my eldest son, when I was teaching at one point, I sent him to school for 2 years, and he got a scholarship to go to one of the most prestigious high schools in our parish. And we never sent him. We kept him at home and homeschooled him, and it was such a trauma. His grandmother, she came and she wept tears. I don't mean my mother, I mean Jen's mother. She wept tears, saying we were destroying the children. And this teacher, she said, why, Mr. Clayton, I hear you're not sending your children to school. I said, no, we are homeschooling them. He said, do you think that's the wise thing? I couldn't explain to her about my Christianity. She wouldn't understand, because she figured herself to be a Christian. And when we talked a little bit, she said, well, Mr. Clayton, I just want you to know we're watching to see what will happen. Okay. That was a long time ago. And I suppose what she might have been looking for was to see one of my children become the prime minister, or to become some outstanding political figure. Maybe that's what she was looking for. And she would have been exceedingly disappointed. I mean, Daniel became a teacher too. Annalie, she chose to stay as a housewife. And Dave has been helping me a lot in the things that I'm doing. But none of them, when they meet their peers, their own age, oh, my daughter is a doctor, my son is this or that, and sometimes the feeling comes, it crosses my mind, did you do the right thing? Did you do the right thing? Sometimes it crosses my mind. It crosses my mind, but it doesn't stay. It doesn't stay, because I always remember, are you building for heaven? Or are you building for this earth? And I'm not putting down people. who think that it's best for my child to go and, you know, go to university, get a degree or 2 degrees. I'm not putting down people. I'm not doing that. What I'm trying to do is to show you the conflict I have been through in my life, because luckily I wasn't eating and drinking with the drunken. I wasn't thinking like them. And God gave me the moral strength and a supportive wife that we could make the decision, and we put our faces like stone against people. At one point, some aspects of our family, they were not speaking to us, they wouldn't communicate with us. They were convinced that we were crazy. And it took some kind of steadfastness and commitment to God to survive that. But what will it be on that day when the crisis comes and I am able to see my children standing with me? And what of the children who went on to make a name in this world? What of the other children who went on to make a name in this world, and they became highly recognized and rated in this world? And eating and drinking with the drunken, and not aware of what is happening and where we are and where we are going. Which is the better way? Which is the better way? We have to heed the words of the Lord and make sure that our eyes are in the right place, because the influences around us are tremendous. They are tremendous, and they impact upon us in ways that we sometimes hardly even recognize. And that is why Jesus says we are to watch. We are to watch. We have to be watchful, because it is so easy to be damaged by the prevailing iniquity. So Peter says, in the last days there will come scoffers, walking after their own lusts. That's one of the things. Okay, but when I was in high school, my biology teacher said to me, "Clayton, you're a damn fool," because I argued with him. He was talking about evolution. He said I'm a fool. When I went to college, my psychology teacher, an African man named Dr. Ewika, Dr. Iro Ewika. I was much older then, and I wouldn't allow him to talk his nonsense, his evolutionary nonsense. I always challenged him in class, and he would listen. And because we were college students, you can't treat me like how you treat a little boy in high school. But then he would mock me with the other students. He would talk to the other students and mock me, and they would smile indulgently at me because I'm the poor Christian fool in the class. But you have this atmosphere around you. So many young people go to university or college and they come back evolutionists and atheists. Have you seen it? Christian young people. Because it's hard to swim upstream. It's hard to be in the atmosphere where you're eating and drinking with the drunken and still remain sober. The only way you can do it, as I learned when I was in college, you have to be aggressive. You have to attack them constantly. Otherwise, they will pressure you and overwhelm you. So they say, what are they saying? Where is the promise of his coming? They are precisely attacking the question of the coming of Jesus. And they are saying that all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. And that is true. Apart from the flood, it has been 6,000 years. And 6,000 years is a long, long time for people with limited existence. So for these people, the drunken, 6,000 years is like eternity. Eternity has passed and Jesus has not come. You're a fool to believe he's still coming. But one of the things that I've always remembered is that the longer it takes for something to happen, the closer it is to happening. It's one of the contradictions that as the longer it takes for something to happen, the more people relax, and yet the closer it is to happening. I remember one night when I was a careless boy. We went on the street. I used to play soccer with the boys, and we were hanging about on the road at night, something you shouldn't do, but I used to do it then. A group of about 6 of us, and we were like in our late teens, young men, and we saw a guy down the road hanging on to a girl, and she was crying for him to let her go, and he wouldn't let her go. It was late-ish. It was like 9, 10 at night, and the road was kind of almost empty. And she was crying for him to let me go, and he wouldn't let her go. And then one of the bigger boys among us, he started to harass the guy and tell him, let go, let her go, let her go. And he started to raise his voice and to curse the guy until this guy was a big hulking fellow. He was a man. He was a man. But when he let go the girl, she started to walk along the road, going to her home. And this is a community. It's not in the city. And as she was walking, he started walking behind her at a distance. So we sensed that there might be trouble. So we started following behind her. And we started shouting at her, telling her that he was coming. And so we were walking a distance behind this guy. He was walking a distance behind the girl. And then she turned into the street where she lives, which is a kind of lonely road. Nobody was there. And the guy turned behind her. And then all of us 6 young men were walking along. And then we came to the road and looked, and I saw no sign of the girl and no sign of the guy. So I realized that the girl could have gone around the corner up ahead because she was enough ahead, but I didn't see the guy. And I was suspicious. Now, the rest of my companions, it seems like they never gave it a thought. They were walking along boldly and making noise. They said, leave the girl alone. Look out, he's coming behind you. But they didn't see the guy. So I dropped behind because I realized something is funny. And just as we came up to a huge tree, the guy rushed out from behind the tree with two bottles in his hand. And of course, everybody scattered. But I was at the back. So I slipped behind the tree. He came out of the tree on this side, and I slipped in on the other side. The point I'm making is that the closer we got to this guy, the more dangerous it became. And my companions were so blissfully aware because they didn't see him. They were completely unaware of anything. And I, on the other hand, I was a little bit more careful. The fact that I didn't see him made me aware that there was greater danger. And I think it's the same thing with Jesus. The closer the more time that passes, the closer we are to that terrible event. And yet everybody is still, the people of the world, the people who are drunken, they are becoming more and more blatant and brazen and secure in their blindness because so much time has passed and nothing has happened. This is kind of the mood in the world today. Just in case you're wondering what happened with that incident with me and this guy. When he ran from behind the tree and he threw the 2 bottles, all my companions fled and they ran back the way they were coming. But I said, maybe I thought I was smart. I stepped behind the tree because I said he didn't see me. So I was behind the tree, and then he was there muttering to himself, and then he looked up and he saw me. It was night, but there was enough light, and he saw me leaning up against the tree. And he gave out a roar and he rushed at me. I'm a small guy. This was a big hulking guy, but I was young and I was a little bit more robust. And he grabbed me. He was partially drunk, and he bit me on my breast, bit down hard. And then he grabbed my head and started pounding my head on the tree. And I wasn't much into fighting, but I knew one thing. I used to wrestle with my brothers, and I knew that if I got my hand around his neck, I would have him at my mercy. So I got my hand around his neck, and I got him in a neck lock, and I threw him over my hip, and he fell on the ground. At that moment, my brother, who was a part of that group of guys that scattered, my brother came running back. He said, "Which of you is with? Which of you is with?" In the dark, he couldn't make out who is who. So he said, which one of you is with? Which one of you is with? So the guy scrambled to his feet, and when he saw that there were 2 of us, he ran up a hill, and my brother and I went in the other direction. So the only thing that came out of it was that I had a swollen part on my chest the next day, and there was this guy walking around and threatening what he was going to do to me if he ever caught me. But anyway, that was the gist of that story. But the point is that what I saw from that, or the point I wanted to make, is that the closer you come to an event and the more calm things look, the more you should be careful. And so these scoffers, the world is full of them. Look at this young guy's chest. In science we trust. It's a barefaced defiance of the God who created us. How can people be so blind that you see, you never ask yourself the question, could I have created myself? Does evolution really make sense? Can something like me have come out of nothing? How do people never ask themselves this question? Even if I weren't a Christian, how could I come believe in something so stupid? But it's that mindset of the world that we are told that Christians should be careful of. By beholding, we become changed. And secondly, there's a verse that says, dead flies cause the apothecary's ointment to give forth a stinking savor. There's another one that says, evil communications corrupt good manners. Bad company spoils good behavior. Bad company spoils good behavior. The company you keep infects and affects you. And that is why we should be careful of who we mingle with habitually. And we should be careful of the influences we allow to come into the lives of our children. How does one watch? How do we watch? Well, we should know what we need to look out for. Jesus says that when it is evening, you say it will be fair weather. Here's one of the ironies of the times that we live in. Whenever my wife wants to wash, whenever she wants to do any washing, she will say, what does the weather say today? I say, why don't you check your phone? But she prefers if I check my phone. All right, so she will always ask me. But all I need to do is to go to Siri. I need to squeeze the thing on my iPhone and say, what will the weather be like in Mandeville today? And it says 20% chance of rain, or cloudy, or sunny. The world has gotten to a place where it is so focused on the things of eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, science, weather report, the future. They can tell you almost with exact precision what will happen where the weather is concerned. Jesus was commenting on this when he was talking about the people of his day. He said they were so concerned about secondary things. He says how amazing it is that when it comes to the thing that pertain to life and eternity, you have not a clue. You are dunce. How come you cannot see the signs of the times? How come these people can tell you how many planets there are in the solar system? How long it takes for the world to travel around the sun? They can tell you. I heard a question on the schools challenge quiz, a schools program on the television this week, where they asked, does time travel faster at the top of a tower than at the bottom? I never heard that question before in my life. And the students said, no, it doesn't. And the answer was, yes, it does. All right, I don't know how they come to that. But anyway, they are able to work out science with such precision, they can tell you that time travels faster at the top of a tower than at the bottom. They can cut your DNA and splice something into it, something that you cannot even see with the most powerful microscopes. You can't manipulate it. They find ways. And they cannot tell you how close it is to the coming of Jesus. They are blinded with secondary things. That's what Jesus meant. We are not of the darkness, we are of the light. We don't need to be able to understand all these scientific formulas, historical facts, Facebook trivia and intricacies, TikTok, whatever it is, and not to understand where we are in the stream of time and eternity. We should not sleep as those that sleep in the night. We should be able to discern the signs of the times. Paul says those who are of the day should be sober. We put on the breastplate of faith and love. When faith and love are the things that we seek and that we obtain, brothers and sisters, we have a shield to protect ourselves. And for an helmet, The hope of salvation, this should fill our minds. It should guard, the helmet guards the brain. It should guard our minds. It should keep us from absorbing the nonsense that is around. When we have the hope of salvation, the hope of this world will not be so overwhelming. It will not so absorb our thoughts and our attention. And I'm just about coming to the end here now. The greatest danger, and I touched on this already, I'll just repeat what I said there. And because iniquity shall abound, notice what it says. What? Abounding iniquity. What is iniquity? It's wickedness, right? Because wickedness is everywhere around us. The love of many grows cold. The love of many shall wax cold. But Jesus says it's the one who endures, and the word endure suggests that it is a test of endurance. It's not like a sprint, it's like a marathon. You don't start and finish quickly, otherwise everybody would get through, but it's an endurance. You stick with the thing to the end. Sometimes you hear me say, brothers and sisters, that I'm kind of a little bit proud because I've been a Christian for 48 years. I don't mean proud in a bad way. I mean proud in a way of, oh my goodness, Lord, I'm going to make it. I'm feeling satisfied. A sister once had a dream where she said that, she saw all the brethren in heaven. And she looked around and she didn't see me. And she said, she was saying, Lord, where is Brother David? I expected to see him here. And then she said she looked in the distance and she saw like a long winding road. And down on that road, she saw a little figure, like somebody running in slow motion, dirty and ragged and tired, but coming step by step, coming on the road. I tell you, the time when I got this, she was overseas, and I went to the post office and I got this letter. And I sat down on the steps of the post office and I read it. And when I read it, I cried. Tears came to my eyes because it felt like that was how it was. Hard, long journey. But I'm not letting go. I'm not stopping. Sometimes I'm in slow motion, sometimes dirty and ragged. Not me, all of us, dirty and ragged, but we're going to get through, and we're not letting go because we are going to endure to the end. We're not going to get caught in the stream of the nonsense. We're not going to eat and drink with the drunken. We will endure to the end. Jesus says this is those who will be saved. But you know who endures? It's those who are not in it for the reward. It's like maybe I use a bad example because I know not everybody does things for the same reason. But I'm glad I endured as a Christian. But I'm also glad I feel good that I endured in my marriage. I'm glad I endured in my homeschooling my children. Some of the things that were the hardest of all. I'm glad God gave me the grace to endure. And he gave me an enduring spirit. And I believe that that enduring spirit will continue into the thing that is most important of all. Because sometimes, like all of you brothers and sisters, sometimes I slip, sometimes I stumble, sometimes I even fall. But look here, I'm getting up and I'm keeping going because there's something there. There's something there. And I think it has to do with this word, the love. The love of many shall wax cold. The reason why they don't endure is because they are not in it for the love. They are in it for the profit, the benefit. They want to walk on golden streets. They want to escape hell, but not many of them really love the Lord. And that is why we emphasize the love of the Lord and the relationship, because that is the glue that will keep you bound to the Lord, that no matter what happens, no matter how many times you stumble, no matter how many times you are disappointed, you're going to get up and keep going. Because that is what true Christianity is about. And that is why Jesus can say, I knew you. I knew you. I know you. We won't hear, I never knew you, because the motive was right. We had on the breastplate of faith and love. We said this already. Let me just repeat it. Take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting, overdoing things, being drunk, and the cares of this life. The ordinary things, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, and so that day come upon you unawares, because Jesus says, like a snare, he uses a word here. A snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. And I always pause when I read that statement. You know why? Look at this. The whole purpose of this is to make the bird be as close to comfortable as possible in the moment when he's on the verge of death. He's on the verge of death, and he's extremely comfortable. He doesn't see anything to be alarmed about, but that's the moment when he's closest to death. And Jesus says, it will come upon the whole earth. It will come upon those who dwell on the face of the whole earth as a snare. It will happen to the people of the world like it's about to happen to this bird. We are not like that. We are not like that. We are of the day. But then the question is, what makes it different for us? The difference is, brothers and sisters, we love the Lord, and because of this, the oil is in the lamps. That's what makes the difference. Somebody might look at you, and somebody might look at the person who is in this other group or that other group or that other ministry or this denomination, and people might say, I don't see much of a difference. But if you look more closely, you will see that one person is in love with the Lord, and the other person is in love with religion. One person has a relationship with the Lord, and the other person has a relationship with morality. It looks very similar, but it is only in the time of the last great test, when people are revealing what kind of clothing they are wearing. Notice this is what Christ is testing for. Where is the wedding garment? People come and they say, Lord, we have done many mighty works in your name, many wonderful works. They are looking at their deeds. They are judging by their works. And what does he say? I never knew you. This is the overwhelming qualification that we know the Lord, that we keep the love alive in our hearts. Now, I have I've covered most of the points. I'm not going to go any further with this because I realize I'm far over time, but I had one or two other screens that basically are going, I have covered them already. So I just want to leave this thought in our minds. The real question, brothers and sisters, is not how much we know of doctrine. Doctrine is important, but it's not the most important question. The most important question is not how well I keep the Sabbath or how well I obey the commandments. If you go back and look at all of these passages, the real question is, do we have the oil in our lamps? Do we know the Lord? Have we left our first love? What is our relationship with the Lord? And that's the bottom line of what I wanted to say this morning. Whether it is to live the Christian life today, or whether it is to prepare for the coming of Jesus, or to prepare for the time of trouble, or for the sealing, the bottom line, brothers and sisters, is the relationship. So may God help us to become so obsessed with Jesus, so focused on him, that we don't find the association of eating and drinking with the drunken appealing to us. And that in our lives, this relationship may become the greatest thing of all.